Every civilization begins with a story. But what happens when humans invent a way to preserve stories forever? By around 5,000 years ago, in the fertile plains of Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates, necessity gave birth to writing. What started as a way to count grain and track trade became a way to record prayers, laws, and dreams. Before writing, human memory was everything. Knowledge of seasons, trade, and social agreements was passed orally from one person to the next. Stories and rituals kept societies alive, but memory alone was fragile. In ancient Mesopotamia, villages had grown into cities. Uruk, one of the first true cities, housed tens of thousands of people. Temples were more than places of worship. They were centers of economic and administrative power, overseeing farms, herds, workshops, and trade. With this complexity came a problem. Memory was no longer enough. How could an administrator keep track of thousands of workers, shipments of grain, livestock, and goods? How could disputes be resolved when people forgot or lied? For centuries, Mesopotamians used clay tokens, small shaped objects representing goods. A cone for grain, a sphere for oil, a cylinder for livestock. Tokens could be stored, counted, and sent with messengers. Eventually, these tokens were sealed in hollow clay envelopes called boule. Breaking the envelope revealed the contents but destroyed the record. Someone had a better idea. Press the tokens onto the envelope's surface. Now the record was visible without breaking it. And then came the leap. Why use tokens at all when the impression itself could convey the information? This was the first step toward writing, using marks to represent reality. By around 3200 BCE, in Uruk, the first tablets appeared. They were pictographic, simple drawings representing objects, quantities, or people. A jar meant oil. A sheep meant livestock. A circle with a cross meant one sheep. These early signs were practical, not poetic. The first written words were receipts, inventories, and records. One of the oldest tablets records 29,086 measures of barley tracked over 37 months, and it's signed by someone named Cusham, possibly the world's first recorded accountant. But pictographs had limitations. Complex ideas, actions, verbs, abstract concepts could not be drawn easily. Scribes experimented with tools. The pointed stylus evolved into a wedge-shaped reed, pressed into clay rather than drawn. These wedge marks gave the script its name, cuneiform, from cuneus, the Latin word for wedge. Over centuries, pictographs simplified, rotated, and abstracted. A curved head became a few wedge strokes. A barley plant became a geometric pattern. Writing became faster, cleaner, and more standardized. The most important breakthrough came with the rebus principle. Symbols could represent sounds, not just objects. A water sign could represent the syllable ah, used in many words. A mouth sign could mean speech or ka, depending on context. This allowed the script to convey anything: names, actions, grammatical particles. Combined with determinatives, silent symbols categorizing words, cuneiform became a flexible, mixed system.
writing had moved from marking reality to representing language itself.
Becoming a scribe was a lifelong commitment. Education took place in the adoba, or tablet house. Boys, often starting at age 7 or 8, learned under strict teachers who demanded precision, repetition, and discipline. Training began with basic wedge strokes, repeated hundreds of times on wet clay. Then students copied long lists of signs, organized by shape or category. Next came syllabaries and lexical lists, teaching phonetic values, words, and meanings. Advanced students practiced real-world documents. Cuneiform was complex, but mastery brought immense social power. Literacy was rare. Fewer than 5% of Mesopotamians could read and write. A trained scribe held wealth, influence, and prestige.
So what did these scribes actually write? Let's explore the incredible variety of texts that survive. About 90% of all surviving tablets are administrative. Receipts, rations lists, inventory, tax records, worker assignments. 3 rams, 8 ewes, 4 lambs delivered by shepherd to the temple. Month 3, day 15. Boring to us, essential to them. But these texts reveal everything about how their economy worked, what people ate, how much they earned, what they bought and sold. Legal texts show a sophisticated system. Marriage contracts specifying dowries and divorce conditions, property sales with witnesses, business partnerships, loan agreements with interest rates, adoption papers, wills. Contracts protected both parties legally. Personal letters are wonderful. They're time capsules of emotion and personality. A father writes to his son at scribal school, "You have let your hand idle. You have abandoned your scribal learning. You wander about the streets. I am deeply troubled. Your classmates are becoming skilled scribes while you lag behind. Write me immediately and tell me how your studies progress." Sound familiar? Parents worried about their kids' education 4,000 years ago, just like today. Here's the most famous complaint letter in history. Around 1750 BCE, in the city of Ur, a copper merchant named Ea Nasir had a customer named Nani. Ea Nasir sold copper ore to Nani. The quality was terrible. Nani was furious. He wrote this scathing complaint. "You said, 'I will give good ingots,' but you did not. You put ingots which were not good before my messenger, and said, 'If you want to take them, take them. If you do not want to take them, go away.' Who am I that you should treat me so? You have insulted messengers sent to you, and now you dare to treat me with such contempt? I shall take legal action to recover my silver from you." Archaeologists found this tablet in Ea Nasir's house, along with several other complaint letters. He apparently collected his bad reviews. Was he defiant, nostalgic? We'll never know.
Literary texts include the Epic of Gilgamesh. The world's first great story was written on 12 clay tablets. It tells of friendship, mortality, and the search for meaning.
Proverbs taught moral lessons and life wisdom. He who possesses much silver may be happy. He who possesses much barley may be happy. But he who has nothing at all may sleep. A loving heart builds the house. A hating heart destroys the house. These were collected and taught to students. Wisdom passed down through generations. Mathematical texts show remarkable sophistication. Multiplication tables, square and cube tables, problems involving compound interest, geometric calculations, even solutions to quadratic equations. They used base 60, called sexagesimal. Why 60? Because it's divisible by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12, 15, 20, and 30. This made fractions and divisions much easier than our base 10 system. This is why we still have 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, and 360 degrees in a circle. We're using Mesopotamian mathematics every day. Medical texts describe hundreds of conditions with their symptoms and treatments. If a man's body is yellow, his face is yellow, his eyes are yellow. This man has jaundice. Or if a man is sick and his stomach is bloated, his face is pale, his hands and feet are cold. This is wind disease. Their medical knowledge was observational and practical. Mesopotamian astronomy began as religious practice, watching the heavens for divine signs, but evolved into sophisticated mathematical science. Astronomical texts track celestial events with precision. The most detailed records come from astronomical diaries, daily observations recorded systematically over centuries. A typical entry from around 400 BCE reads, Month 1, Day 1. The moon became visible behind the bull of heaven, Taurus. Venus stood in the lion, Leo. Jupiter was in the scorpion. Mars was not visible. Saturn was in the crab, Cancer. The weather was cloudy. These diaries continued day after day, year after year, for over 700 years. The Venus tablet records 21 years of Venus observations. Late Babylonian astronomical diaries recorded daily positions of planets, lunar phases, weather, and significant events. These observations led to mathematical models that could predict eclipses and planetary positions, the foundation of astronomy.
Cuneiform wasn't just for Sumerian. Around 2334 BCE, a Semitic-speaking people called the Akkadians, led by Sargon, conquered the Sumerian city-states. The Akkadians spoke a language completely different from Sumerian, as different as English is from Chinese. But they looked at cuneiform and realized, we can use this too. They adapted the signs to write their language, same wedge shapes, different sounds and grammar. This was revolutionary. Cuneiform proved it could transcend its original language. The signs were flexible enough to represent completely different phonetic systems. The Babylonians and Assyrians, both Akkadian-speaking peoples, became masters of cuneiform. They developed their own scribal traditions, produced vast libraries, and created some of the most beautiful cuneiform inscriptions. The Assyrian king Ashurbanipal, 668 to 627 BCE, created the ancient world's greatest library at Nineveh. Over 30,000 tablets covering every subject imaginable. He sent scribes across his empire to copy texts from other cities. Ashurbanipal personally boasted that he could read ancient Sumerian, a dead language by his time. He was a warrior king who was also a passionate scholar and collector of knowledge. The library had catalogs, tags identifying texts, organized sections for different subjects. This was systematic knowledge preservation on an unprecedented scale. When Nineveh was destroyed in 612 BCE, the fire that burned the palace actually preserved the library, baking the tablets hard as stone. Ironically, destruction saved them. But cuneiform spread even further. The Elamites in Iran adapted it for their language. The Hittites in Anatolia, modern Turkey, used it for their Indo-European language. The Hurrians used it. The Urartians used it. Hittite cuneiform is particularly interesting. The Hittites spoke an Indo-European language. They used cuneiform signs both for their syllabic values and created new signs for sounds that didn't exist in Sumerian or Akkadian. The Persians developed Old Persian cuneiform, a simplified version with only 36 signs, much easier to learn than the 600-plus signs of Akkadian cuneiform. For over 3,000 years, cuneiform was the dominant writing system of the ancient Near East. No writing system except Chinese characters has lasted longer. By the first millennium BCE, alphabets like Phoenician and Aramaic emerged and had only 22 letters. They were simpler, faster, and more accessible. Cuneiform gradually disappeared. The last known tablet dates to 75 CE. For nearly 2 millennia, no one could read the tablets. Ancient voices fell silent. Within a generation or two, no one could read cuneiform anymore. 3,000 years of written knowledge became unreadable. The great cities were abandoned. Sand covered the ruins. Ziggurats became mysterious mounds. By medieval times, people told stories of ancient giants who built the strange structures. European travelers in the 1600s and 1700s sketched strange wedge-covered bricks and stones. But no one could read them. Some thought they were decorative patterns, not writing at all. The breakthrough came in the 1830s in Persia, Iran. British officer Henry Rawlinson noticed a massive inscription carved high on a cliff face at Behistun. The inscription was in 3 languages: Old Persian cuneiform, Elamite cuneiform, and Babylonian cuneiform. Rawlinson risked his life copying it, hanging from ropes on the cliff face hundreds of feet up. Scholars already had some knowledge of Old Persian from other sources. Rawlinson and others used it as a key, comparing the 3 versions to work out what sounds the Babylonian signs represented. Other scholars contributed. George Friedrich Grotefend made early breakthroughs with royal names. Edward Hincks identified syllabic values. Jules Oppert worked on distinguishing Sumerian from Akkadian. By the 1850s, cuneiform could be read again. After nearly 2,000 years of silence, the tablets spoke. In 1872, George Smith, a young curator at the British Museum, was translating tablets from Ashurbanipal's library. He found something extraordinary, a flood story older than the Bible. The discovery shocked Victorian England. The Epic of Gilgamesh became a sensation. Here was proof of advanced literature and mythology predating Hebrew scripture. Today, hundreds of thousands of cuneiform tablets sit in museums worldwide. The British Museum, the Louvre, the Oriental Institute, the Penn Museum, universities and private collections. Every year, new texts are published revealing fresh insights into ancient life. Modern technology is helping. High-resolution imaging reveals damaged or faint signs. Digital databases catalog tablets worldwide. Machine learning assists in identifying signs and suggesting translations. Projects like the Cuneiform Digital Library Initiative aim to digitize every cuneiform tablet and make them freely available online to scholars and the public. Cuneiform lasted over 3,000 years. It wrote more than 15 different languages. It recorded the full spectrum of human experience, from the mundane to the magnificent. It began as a solution to a practical problem. How do you track grain and sheep? But it became so much more. It gave us our first literature,
our first written laws, our first historical records, our first scientific observations. From clay tablets to keyboards, from wedges to pixels, we're still doing what those first scribes in Uruk 5,200 years ago did, recording our thoughts, preserving our knowledge, speaking to the future. Cuneiform was our declaration that we could capture thought in physical form and send it across centuries.